let's speak to Dan Abrahams, of course, a top sports psychologist and a man who knows what it's like as well to be a professional sportsman, having been a top golfer in his time. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, guys.
I hate to talk about penalties, of course, because I want us to somehow manage to do this in normal time or even extra time, but there is, at this stage of any tournament, inevitably, the thoughts, particularly with our records, that this is the way it might go.
Sure, but I'm quite optimistic. The noise is coming from Roy Hodgson and his coaching staff. In terms of a psychological perspective, are quite good. He's talking about them practicing their penalties, which is the obvious thing to do, but it sounds to me like he's really putting an onus on practicing effectively. He's saying that he's not letting players take penalties willy-nilly. He's making sure that those players pick a target, pick a spot, and do that consistently as they practice, rather than just taking the penalties that they want to. They're actually practicing the specific penalty they're going to take. So at least that's a step in the right direction.
Dan, what does pressure do to your psychology when you're taking a penalty?
Well, let me give your listeners a good analogy here. Imagine a plank of wood in front of you, 10 to the feet wide. Now, if I was to hoist that piece of wood a couple of feet off the ground, you'd walk across that, right? Easy task. But if I was to hoist that wood 1,000 feet into the air, and I was to ask you to walk across it, you probably wouldn't do it. And that's the same kind of feeling that these players get when they're tournament penalties. You feel the nerves from a physical perspective, you have worry and doubt from a mental perspective, you perhaps see yourself missing, you feel uncomfortable, you feel out of control. And it really doesn't matter whether you're a world-class player, whether you're a Sunday League player. The way the brain works, you get those thoughts and feelings.
Do you have to, as a manager, though, let's take the game tonight, Roy will have in his mind, I'm sure, who his 1 and 4 penalty takers are, which are the two key positions, and that top 5. What happens if somebody's still involved in the game, not been substituted or anything like that, but not having had the best of nights? Is it good to change at last minute, or have you got to look and see whether they fancy it at that very last minute, or do you stick with what you've already planned?
In my opinion, I think you have to have contingency plans. And knowing Roy Hodgson, I did a brief stint at the Fulham Academy a few years ago. It was known that this guy is a fantastic tactical coach, somebody who knows how to get the best out of players. And I would be shocked if he didn't have contingency plans. If England go a goal down, if a player has a bad game, has to take a penalty, I think he is going to have those contingency plans in place.
I tell you what, Dan, though, on a personal level, you can practice and practice and practice, but when that moment comes, there's doubt in your mind. As you're walking up to take that penalty, the goal looks like a five-a-side goal, and the goalkeeper looks like the giant from the Jack and the Beanstalk.
Absolutely, and going back to my past and playing golf, when you've got a 2 or 3 foot putt to win a tournament, and that ball looks massive, but the hole looks tiny. So I have some sympathy with you. From a psychologist's perspective, you spend a lot of time with players, giving them a routine. So just as a golfer will have a pre-shot routine, I would want penalty takers to have a pre-penalty routine. And that would start, for instance, as they're walking from the halfway line to the penalty spot. I would want them to keep good body language, a very basic thing, but something that helps them feel like they can convert the penalty. Pick a small target, because that's the way the brain and nervous system work best. Visualize yourself executing the penalty perfectly, and then have one simple focus on a great strike on the ball. And ultimately, Quinny, that's all you can do. If the goalkeeper gets a hand on it, well, he saved it, well done to him. But what they have to have is a routine that helps them execute this penalty effectively.
Dan, I wish I'd met you when I was playing, because I think I scored 75% of the penalties that I took. What about the goalkeeper then? That's the penalty taker. What about the goalkeeper's mentality?
We mentioned earlier that the goalkeeper looks big, obvious to state this, but that goalkeeper, wants to get into the mind of the penalty taker himself. He wants to change that penalty taker's perception. How he did that? What he uses body language. He goes up to the penalty taker. He makes himself big. I think most goalkeepers these days have a system. You have so much video analysis now. As Joe Hart has said, it only takes a few seconds on YouTube to get up penalty takers from. So they have some idea where the penalty taker might take his penalty. So it is easier today, but at the end of the day, if that player slots it in the corner of the net, it's often unreachable. So again, you have to rationalise it.
Well, it all sounds fascinating stuff, and I'm sure that, as you said, knowing Roy Hodgson, that he's done the business. Dan, let's keep our fingers crossed tonight, if we have to, that it all goes to plan and they've done their work in the right way. Lovely to talk to you. That's Dan Abrahams with his thoughts, Quinny.